right, I'm out here today. I'm gonna do a tutorial on how to get the logs to land flat. I'm gonna be taking this guy down. Yeah, this job is for my dad. This isn't a side job. I seriously never do side work. Oh my God, I'm so bad at sales. They either only go one of two ways either.
So how much do you think this tree is gonna cost exactly?
20.
$20,000?
Oh, do this tree for $20.
$20. I think I'll just have my husband do it.
Or, all right, we're all done.
On second thought, I think I would like it cleaned up.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go up there, gonna buzz off the branches, and then try to show how to get these logs to land flat. First things first, we're gonna have to get the branches off. Nice. All right. It's easy. So the top's out. So first I'm gonna take a log, and so the objective here is we want these logs to land flat, right? I don't want to stab the tip in, mess up. Well, there's not really any grass there. It's mostly moss, but you know what I mean. You don't want to punch holes in grass. So we're gonna talk about how to land the logs flat. So I'm gonna cut one log and just see how it goes, and then we'll talk about it a little bit and see. Man, I hope this works. That'd be so awkward if it didn't work for this. But anyways, I'm gonna head down, cut one log, see if we can get this thing to land flat, see if I can explain it, and see if we can do it a few more times. All right, well, I'm kind of cheating here, but you see, so this tree right here is 80 feet tall. So I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna flop a 16-footer out of it and see if it lands flat. So I just measured it with the laser. I usually try to eyeball this, but I'd be so embarrassed if this didn't work in this video. I'm gonna try to see if I can get it exactly right. So I'm just gonna put that in the top there. And I'm just gonna spike on down. Got my brother down there ready to record. Thanks, Shane. All right, so here's 16 feet. I'm just gonna mark it. I'm gonna mark that right there. See how easy that was? I'll give that a tug. I like cutting from this side, so I swivel here for the notch, and I'll swivel to the other side. I don't know why, it's just the way I'm comfortable. So I'm gonna put it right about where you guys are. All right, so I measured 1/5 down. All right, so now I'm gonna do my back cut. Hopefully this thing lands flat. It'd be so awkward if it didn't. Here we go. Okay, head up. Thank God that worked. All right, let's talk about that a little bit. All right, so the most important thing to know about this. So the idea is that you got your tree here. So the idea is that by taking, a 20% or 1/5, 20% is 1/5 log, it will rotate exactly one time and it will land flat. So it's really important that we make that more tree-like. Isn't that nice? So it's really important that we understand I'm gonna try to really break it down because, you know, we're all tree guys. We're not very good at math, but if you can figure out this fraction or decimal or whatever, then I guess I can write it as a decimal too, or just ignore that. Okay, so if you can figure this out, then you can get these logs to land flat every time, and it's actually pretty easy, you know, with just a conventional notch. So I want to really make sure, because sometimes people say 20%, sometimes people say 1/5. They're the same thing, and I'll show you how. So if we take a circle and we divide this into you know, 5 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, they're obviously not equal, but I'm doing my best here, and I'm really bad at drawing. So if we take this and we fill in one of them, sorry, and we fill in one of them, this is 1/5. Now if we take our cubes here, oh, I'll try this. So now imagine if I take this circle, right? So take this circle, this is 1/5, and I just move these over here, and I stack these on top of each other. I stack them on top of each other like that. See, now it's really the same thing. And if you take one off, put it back here, so this is 20%, or 1/5. So we've got 5 blocks here. Well, what does that mean? How big of a log is that really? We'll say I'll do 10 of these. Now imagine each block is 10 feet. We've got a 100-foot tall tree. Now, remember how this was when we took one of these away, you know, we got the right size. This is 20%. So this, you just double it like that, and this would be the size of the log that would land flat. So the way that you calculate it, and that I personally, you have, you know, 2 ways of doing it. You can kind of look down and conceptualize where 5 pieces are, and which is kind of tricky, but you get used to it. The easiest way to do it is to find out what 10% is. So this is 20%. Well, if we figure out what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll figure out what 10% is, then we know we can just double it, right? And that'll give us our 20%. So we get a fresh piece of paper so it doesn't look like too much information. I don't want to put like too many numbers on it at once, then it'll be confusing. So say my tree is 100 feet tall, right? Just to make it easy. To find 10% of that, all I got to do is move, so this is the decimal right here, like, we just got to move this over right here. So 10% of 100 is 10, because we just moved the decimal over 1. Or, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying my best, I'm not that great at math either, but if we figure that, then we can double that. So this, okay, 100-foot tree, 100-foot tree. Now 10% of that, 10%, that would equal a 10-foot log. Well, we know that 20% is what lands flat, right? So 20% would just be 2 of those, right? So 20 foot. So 20-foot log will land flat every time when you drop it out of a 100-foot tree. Well, so say, you know, that's pretty easy, but say we have 80 feet. 80-foot tree. Spelled free. It's like my bartering skills. Okay, so we've got an 80-foot tree, right? And we want it to land flat. Well, we need a 20% of this. We need to find 20% of this. So what I do is I find 10% first. So it's the same thing. So 10% of 80 would be 8. 8 equals 10%. I need to double that. 16 times 2 is 20%. A 16-foot log will land flat, I promise you. In fact, the one this tree was exactly 80, and I measured it with my laser, my forestry laser, and then with my log tape, and I took exactly a 16-foot log out of an 80-foot tree, and you saw it landed flat. And so on it goes. If we cut this in half, so a 50-foot tree. So a 50-foot tree, how do you misspell 50? Wow. So a 50-foot tree. We want this to land flat. We know 10% of this is gonna be a 5-foot log, and we need to double it. So we do a 10-foot log. So imagine, I'll go back to the squares. So imagine each one of these are 10 feet, and I take a 10-foot log, it will land flat. And I'm gonna do that a few more times. And so the downside is, of course, as you get lower, your logs get shorter and shorter, you know. But this is a good, so this is not, it's not a very good way for harvesting lumber or anything like that, but it's a good way to preserve the lawn and to just, you know, it's a little more professional when the logs, you know, land flat and they don't stab into the ground and make a big giant pothole. And so that's really all there is to it. With just a little tiny bit of basic arithmetic, you can get these things to land flat. The hardest part is, you know, figuring out the size of the log itself. I usually just guess. You can also have your ground guys help you, and they can, you know, eyeball it for you. What I'm doing right now, I just did it with this last log and it worked really well, is I used my forestry laser. I think these are like 200 or 300 bucks. So kind of expensive, but I use it for different things. This isn't why I have this. But I have it for crane setups and measuring trees and stuff. But I'll shoot the distance, figure out the height, and then I'll measure the top down. I really hope that visual made sense. Let me know if that made sense in the comments, because it's a really neat trick. It's a really easy way to get the logs to land flat and preserve the landscaping. You know, if you drop a big fat log, even on, you know, lawn, and it lands flat, it really does relatively little damage. And the customers will thank you for it. Plus, then you won't end up with like a foot of dirt and stuff on your log, or you're trying to cut that anyways. Just for all kinds of reasons, it's better to, you know, land them flat. The one caveat to this, though, I have to mention, so say we're up in our tree. It's a horrible tree. Anyways, just trust me, it's a tree. You know, and I flop a log out. It shouldn't even have branches. Okay. There's my new tree. So this is my stick, right? And I'm up here. So there I am, and I'm gonna take a log. So all this that I did, it counts for flat ground. So if you have a hill and you try this, then it's not gonna be exactly the same. So this is a good way to, you know, considering flat ground. Once you're on hills, it gets trickier, but it's always trickier trying to chunk these things on hills anyways. So hopefully you're on flat ground like I am, and hopefully that all made sense. So let's chunk a little bit more wood and see how that goes. Oh, now one more thing too. When you, yeah, never mind. Would it be possible to roll the log to the side, or is it too big?
I got that roller thing.
That would be helpful. All right, so I'm just gonna shoot this. So I'm 64 feet. I guess I knew that because I already did that. So 64 feet. So I find 10%, so that'd be 6.5 feet about, and then I want to double it. So I'm gonna go for 12, 13 feet. Yeah, 6.4. So 6 plus 6 would be 12. So I'm gonna do a 13-foot log. Take my log tape. I've never done this with the laser and stuff. I've always just guessed, but I might start doing this. It's pretty handy. It really is the hardest part, I'm telling you, you know, trying to figure out the size, guessing. It really takes a lot of practice. Okay, and you see, so I cut a little past center. You can see center here because there's the center. So I'll explain why I cut so deep. You see there's center, and you know that's center because you can see the middle ring here. And the reason I cut that deep is because, well, A, because I know this species is super strong and it's straight, there's no lean to it. So getting it past center displaces the gravity. So now I've got this whole log resting on this point, and this thing, when I cut it, it's gonna want to tip over. So I won't need to put a rope on it, I won't need to use wedges. And I will be frank and say the safest way would be with a rope on it, you know, but I don't feel like having, you know, my dad and brother trudge through the sticker bushes, so I'm gonna do this myself. I've done this a bunch, so I'm confident about this, but it would be a little safer with a rope on it. But this is a good way to get something to tip over, you know, when it's perfectly distributed. And it, you know, so I hope that makes sense. That's why I go so deep on these sometimes. If this leaned back at all, I wouldn't dream of it. I'd have a rope on it. If it leaned forward, I wouldn't need to do that because it would already be weighted the right way. But because it's perfectly straight, I know that by cutting that deep into this thing, it'll tip right over. So you do that with caution. It's got to be perfectly weighted. But that's a good way to get short, stubby stuff. You know how sometimes you try to fall something short and stubby and you do like a third. If you cut a third, like the textbooks tell you, you know, that will require some external force, either pushing or pulling motion, or lifting motion to get it to go over. But this way I'll be able to use gravity without any other things, without any wedges or ropes or anything. So do it with caution, but that's why I cut so deep like that on some things like this. So here we go. All right, so this is gonna tip over in a second. Ooh, I guess that one is a little long, but mostly flat. Flat enough. That one didn't land super flat, but it almost landed flat. That sucks. Nice job, guys. So, man, these really aren't landing as well as I'd like them to, of course, because they land better when you're not recording. So, but the reason that, if that makes sense, going past center, you can imagine this is a tree, you know, and imagine this is the depth of my notch, you know. So you notice, once I get past, imagine this is my notch, once I get past center, gravity wants to take this. If this is the depth of my notch, you see, you need some external force to get this thing to tip over. But by cutting past center, you know, gravity can take it over. Hope that made sense.
What?
This tree is 50 years old.
Cool. That's it? 50?
Yeah.
50 from where?
Huh?
From that cookie I made?
Yeah.
So that means it was this tall 50 years ago.
Well, that's what that means?
So
Yeah, because they get taller as they go, so there'll be more rings at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So are you gonna cut
Yeah,
it?
that was the first we made higher than that, so.
Yes, there'll be some more down low.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know that. That's cool.
I'm helping you with that.
Go grab one of those wedges. There's a wedgie over there.
I know.
Nice job, buddy.
Oh, David, you did good. You did
Nice
good.
job, David.
What?
All right, heads up. Notice I didn't measure this one. They're not landing as flat as I like when I measure them, so I'm just going off my gut instinct on this one. Hopefully this will land better. All right, hit it! made to show you. You just, trust me, it was so good the way that it landed. You guys would have loved it. So here's the next one. Ah, crap, you weren't supposed to see that. Kind of flat. So you can see, even if they don't make it 100% perfect, getting it close enough this way can still reduce a lot of damage done to the ground. See right there, there's actually relatively little damage done. If you endo it completely and the tip stabs in, you can cause a big pothole, or you can also cause the log to bounce and go flying off pretty far. All right, well, that's about the summary of it. I mean, I really wish they would have landed flatter than that. That was not bad, but you know, none of them totally endoed, so that was good. And there aren't any big potholes in the yard. It would have been more satisfying if there would have been a big smack, so I'll probably have to add some of those in there. But that's the basic concept. Any more I would do, they'd be pretty small chunks, and I'd rather just fall this thing now that it'll fit. So I'm gonna come down and drop it. But that was it for, I guess, the world's okayest log flopping tutorial. So, but that is the concept. If you can get it 1/5 or 20%, they will land flat with a conventional notch. I was slightly off on my measurements, I think, so they weren't perfect. And it is a tiny bit of an incline, so that didn't help. Obviously it works best on flat ground. But so anyways, hopefully that was good. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that. If you could like and subscribe, that would be appreciated. So all right, I'll see you later, fellas. High five, buddy.
High five.